Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Mary Price. I'm the Events and Marketing Director at the Shingo Institute at Utah State University. Today, we have Rolando Vargas with us. He is the Organizational Excellence Global Director at Hanseatic Global Terminals. In our December newsletter, we published an article called Leading Through Neuroscience, Developing Human Management Systems, and that's the topic that we're discussing today. You can read that article by going to shingo.org/articles. Rolando, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today, and I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Mary, for having me here. And also, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So this session is built for practical application. So I'm not here to make you a neuroscientist. I'm here to translate a small set of brain principles into management system design. So you can make immediately some choices that improve decision quality, learning speed, psychological safety, and ultimately performance. As part of my background, besides of operational excellence, continuous improvement and quality, I have studies in neuroscience, neuroeducation, and neurofeedback. And what I'm doing now is taking this knowledge and applying into organizational systems. So moving forward, it's important to build a shared baseline about what is the brain, right? First, the brain is a living network. It's around 86 billion of neurons plus supporting cells, the glia cells, that are constantly exchanging signals. But for leadership, the most useful frame is this, right? The brain is a prediction engine. And I have with me one brain to explain you some of these concepts, right? And this machine, it's always trying to reduce uncertainty. And this is super important to understand. Uncertainty is totally the opposite about the brain is looking for, right? So how we are trying to reduce uncertainty by anticipating what is coming next, right? That's why clarity matters so much. Uncertainty is not just a management problem, it's a biological cost. Second, the brain is a regulator. It coordinates the body systems, attention, emotions, action. In other words, the brain is not only about thinking, it's about prioritizing what matters right now. Okay? And there is a primary job of the brain. The main function, the main function of the brain is to keep us alive. It maintains stability, homeostasis, and also responds to threats. It also tries to conserve energy. That means that it defaults habits become shortcuts. That means our behavior actually are shortcuts that we're already creating in our brain in order to reduce the energy consumption. Why this is important? Because the brain only represents 2% of the body mass, but consumes around 20% of the total energy at rest. If we are facing peaks of workload, over workload in our brains, it could go until 45% of the total energy consumption of the human body, right? Also, it's important that the brain prioritize social safety, status, belonging, fairness, and trust. Those are key drivers whenever the people speak up, take ownership, and also when people learn, right? Having a lot of meetings, interruptions, vague priorities, constant alerts, they are not just annoying. Those are energy taxes. Remember again, the brain consumes a lot of resources of the human body. Our cognitive load has some limits. Too many priorities produces slower decisions and also more errors in our processes in our organization. So with that said, I want to pose one question so you can carry into the system design is what can we simplify, what can be clarified or can be automated in order to protect the thinking time. Thinking time is super important, and in nowadays organization, thinking time is being taken as a laziness, and it's not like that, right? Thinking time is how we are promoting creativity across the teams and across the organization. Because When the brain senses threat or ambiguity, it relocates all the resources from learning to protection. Learning is very related to the prefrontal cortex, that is the top part of the brain that is just above our eyes, right? In that area is where we are making all the executive decisions about everything, right? But when we are feeling under any kind of threat, all of these resources cannot go to that part because the brain prioritizes the safety. So in that situation, you will see a lot of people reacting in a wrong way. We can say that, right? Our brain has been shaping over long time ago, right? And this is like an anthropological idea, right? So our brain has been shaping based off the evolutionary timeline. We evolve as from a small group survival. That means that fast trading detection and fast social judgment is part of that. In many cases, we are biased toward loss avoidance and we seek certainty when stakes feel high, right? Nowadays, modern workplace, you will see a lot of constant alerts. You will see a lot of abstract goals, frequent reorganization, chronic ambiguity, a lot of loss of social comparison, and also limited time to recovery. That is a total mismatch about how the brain has been designed for, right? And this is why, in many cases, our systems, our processes are not delivering the right results because those systems are not aligned to the brain. Many of us, we use one term that is fit to purpose, right? We are trying to fit our systems, our processes to the goal, to the delivery. But what about fit to our brain, right? Our systems needs to fit to our biological processes, right? Under stress, the brain downshifts the executive functions, right? Everything related with planning, judgment, impulse control, cognitive flexibility, that will become less efficient under stress. And in many cases, we relied more on the behaviors and also into emotional reactivity. And this is not sustainable. In organizations that show up as more rework, less learning, fewer bad news, and people staying silent until it's too late. Those are symptoms about chronic stress that you can see in the organizations. And you need to take in consideration something that is really important. Leaders do not fix people. They fix the environment that shapes the behavior. And this is well explained by the Shingo model, right? Environment systems drive behaviors. And this is the focus of our leaders, is not trying to fix people. Then we have another term that is very important. It's called neuroplasticity. It's about how the brain changes, right? The brain, it's not fixed, right? Basically, it requires with experience, with practice, and with context. If you remember only one formula from this section is this one, right? This part that you can see that how learning sticks is repetition, feedback, and recovery. Those are three elements that cannot be replaced with other, and it goes into the same sequence. We will talk later more about feedback, the importance of the feedback, and the timeline when the feedback is very useful, right? There are a lot of mechanisms behind that. The synaptic strengthening and the awakening network, we will see a lot of limited ways of structural remodeling in our brain. You can see on this video is from a microscopic laser. So you will see how the neurons are creating new connections, right? And this is based on experience, neural activity, synaptic change, and ultimately that will see as a behavior change or new habits in our people. That will have a lot of leadership implication, right? Because Once our leaders understand how the brain works, what is our main functionality of the brain, and how to stimulate, you can start seeing better the results across the organization based as an outcome of our systems, right? What is needed for the plasticity? We need to have attention, we need to have repetition, we need to have feedback, and also the recovery time, and or the sleep or the stress regulation that can be seen, right? So our system needs to have three elements that are important. One is should be easy to repeat, right? Our processes should be easy, even could be complex, but not cannot be complicated for our people. Then our system should be safe and should be able to improve. And also we need our system to reinforce the right behaviors and to correct the wrong behaviors or the desired or the behaviors that are not desired as part of the organization. This is not about inspiration, it's about system architecture, right? And we as a leaders, we have this responsibility about how we are designing our systems in order to fit to our brains, right? Then we have the feedback, right? Feedback is very, very important. And for me personally, this is one of the most underestimated levels in leadership. Feedback and coaching, this is a thing that should be deployed all across the organization, right? Anyone at any kind of different level should be able to provide coaching and to provide feedback to the individuals, right? Something that is important, right? If you want the habits to change, you need to have high frequency, low stakes practice embedded on the job. One of training, they rarely change the behavior because they do not change the environment. The brain returns on Monday morning to the environment, to the typical business as usual, and nothing has changed, right? Something that can be changed is to develop a simple cadence that is more powerful than a perfect workshop. Many cases, we are looking to get the perfect workshop when we want to have everything perfect, everything in place, and we are putting our people 8 hours for 1, 2, 3 days, whatever, and we're expecting the magic, but the magic doesn't happen in that way because we learn how the brain learns, right? 10 minutes, 3 times per week, doing that for a month, that will outperform a one single long session because respects how the brain learns, right? Through repetitive activation. Feedback is critical and timing is key. Fast feedback, I mean, and when I'm saying fast feedback is just next to the event, right? That closes the loop while the brain still links the cause and effect. Remember this concept, cause and effect. If we are getting closer the cause to the effect or to the feedback, then system or the brain system will take that and will rewires accordingly to the desired behavior, to the desired process. The result of all of this is having safer learning loops, faster improvement, and at the end of the day, we will have a more resilient culture. This is very important because we have two elements or two situations that will happen into our brain. One is stress and one is the change, right? We need to understand that our brain that is under chronic stress won't be able to change. That means that all the process improvement, all the organizational changes, etc., won't happen or won't stick because that's not going to be sustainable, right? So what we need to do that. So under sustained pressure, stress chemistry shifts control from the prefrontal context is that part that we have the planning, and basically it turns all of these resources to the survival circuits that produces reactive firefighting, short-term decisions, and at the end of the day, more errors. So what we do, we design levels that keeps thinking online. What are those levels? So short decision horizon, so uncertainty is manageable. We need to make uncertainty explicit. We can insert brief resets or time to rest. And also we need to protect the thinking time, right? Because this is the only way how we can promote neuroplasticity during the rest, right? We need to change this kind of mindset about having the organizational heroes. The organization hero cannot be that person that stays until 1 a.m., 2 a.m., sending emails to the organization, because that's not sustainable, right? Sleeping time is super important. The framework about having 8 hours of rest is not it's not just because, is because there's science behind of that, because we have the circadian rhythms that needs to be applied to our brain, and it's the only way how we can protect. And also during the sleeping time is when the memory gets consolidated, and that means how the learning process occurs into the hippocampus in our brain. I have one methodology or method or framework that is called SCARS, SCAR signals. So this is very important when we are trying to perform coaching with our people, right? Because basically it creates a safer environment to start having conversation with our people, right? So the SCAR means statutory, status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. Fairness is something that is very important, remember, because we are coming from social uh, human beings, and fairness is something that is very related with the social environments, right? This slide is just a simple visual contrast, right? Is what happens under chronic stress versus a balances homeostasis. In a healthy state or homeostasis, the neurons are active, they are connected, they are supported. You can think this as a system that encourages learning, enough nutrients, enough recovery, and enough connections, right? But in the other hand, under chronic stress, this system shifts. Fewer connections, lower activity, conservation mode. And you can see, right, in this right side, you see the glia cells that is full pack, is kind of fatty, right? Because this is keeping nutrients and not sharing that to the neurons, because that means that those nutrients could be used in case of emergency. That's what stress makes to the body, to the human body. Mhm. This is why stress management is not just like an individual wellness initiative, right? It's not, this should be taken as a management system responsibility. We need to take in consideration the load, the clarity, the fairness, and also the rhythms of our protocols, our management protocols, right? This is very related to all of you, but it's important to reinforce, right? Because principles is about how we believe people should be treated, right? Then we have the systems, that's routines, those metrics, those information flows. Then we have our behaviors, right? And we already said that the behaviors are the short links that are created, the shortcuts that are creating our brains in order to reduce that cognitive load and this excessive resource consumption. And at the end of the day, we have the results, right? Safety, quality, delivery, cost, right? If we see that through the neuroscience lens, the system should reduce unnecessary threat and protect the cognitive capacity. And from the Shingo lens, basically says ideal results require ideal behaviors, purpose and system-right behaviors, principles inform behavior, right? So we need to redesign a few daily routines. We don't need to redesign the organization in order to change the behavior at the scale. Simple changes about simplifying Monday morning meetings, about how we are communicating, about how we are making the progress visual, that will help a lot for our organization to become more proficient and more aligned to the human being. And just lastly, I want to give you three important inputs that can be applicable to any management system. First one is reduce the threat. Create uncertainty by design. We need to build psychological safety. We need to make the fairness visible, right? And this is very important for our recognition systems, right? An unfair recognition system will destroy our people's motivation, right? And motivation is totally related with dopamine about how we are promoting the movement in our organization, in our people. Mhm. We need to reduce the cognitive load. That means that reduce the working process, protects the people focus, try to reduce the ambiguity, and also try to reduce the competitive priorities, and also try to reduce the stress in the flow. Second point is increase the reward, and this again related with the motivation to the people, right? Create autonomy, but with guardrails. We need to make the progress visual, right? Let's use all the visual management techniques or tools that are available, because this is how we are communicating to the organization. We need to recognize ideal behaviors, right? And also remember, feedback needs to be closer to the action. We need to develop these kind of protocols in our organization. We need to design for mastery. Mastery is deliberate practice, coaching, feedback. In that way, we are growing competence and self-confidence in our organization. And also, we need to strengthen the belonging, the feel of being part of something bigger, right? It's not about making money. It's about what we are achieving together. What is the purpose of the organization? Mhm. And the third level is enable learning, right? Learning organization is the only way how organization can be sustainable, right? How we can do that? By sharing the feedback loops. We talk about that. We need to embed the delivery practice. We need to install the coaching cadence. Again, coaching and feedback should be a skill that needs to be deployed all over the organization, across the organization, on all the levels. It's not only for top management, for leaders, anyone who is leading a group of people or even one person should be able to perform coaching and feedback. We need to capture and share knowledge. That's part of the learning organization, how we are avoiding to reinvent the wheel, how we are leveraging these resources and these people in order to become a better organization, and also to protect recovery, to consolidate. Again, this is about sleep, it's about downtime, it's about micro breaks, it's about reduce chronic overload. And this is important because we want to have our people to focus on what really is important, how to solve problems, how to improve, how to execute the strategy for the organization. The only way that we can have our people focus on that is to removing all of other cognitive loads that can be happening because the organization is not having the right systems, right? So my recommendation is not to try to implement everything. Just pick one of these protocols, create one ritual per pillar, run it for a few weeks, and track with a leading indicator. Make it visual, right?
Thank you so much for presenting today. That was really great to learn a little bit more about how our brain operates and how we can succeed better at work. So thank you so much for that.